Throughout history, there has been a hidden art, a secret knowledge reserved for a few beginners, a mystery wrapped in symbols, metaphors, and cryptic formulas that have disconcerted entire generations. It is about alchemy, but not the one that seeks to turn lead into gold, but a much deeper and more powerful one, spiritual alchemy. What would happen if I told you that inside you there is a latent force capable of transmuting your essence, of transforming your shadows into light, your fears into wisdom, your suffering into evolution? Spiritual alchemy is the lost key to understanding the true purpose of existence, the process through which the soul is purified and reaches its highest state. From the ancient Egyptian alchemists to the Hermetics of the Renaissance, this teaching has been transmitted in coded texts, in secret manuscripts, and in enigmatic symbols, hoping that someone with enough vision could decipher them. But today, here, we will reveal what has remained hidden for centuries. In this video, we will explore the origin and essence of spiritual alchemy, how its principles have been preserved over time, and most importantly, how you can apply this knowledge in your life to achieve a true inner awakening. Prepare for a journey to the unknown, where transformation is not an abstract concept, but a reality that is within reach of those who dare to look beyond the obvious. Alchemy has been, since time immemorial, a hidden science and a sacred practice that has been transmitted through generations of wise philosophers and mystics. Its origins are lost in the fog of antiquity, but the first evidences of its existence lead us to the shores of the Nile, where the Egyptian priests considered it a divine art linked to Thoth, the god of knowledge and wisdom. It was in this civilization where alchemy began to be associated with the transformation not only of metals, but also of the human spirit. Later, this knowledge was collected by the Greeks, who integrated it into their philosophical vision of the world. Plato spoke of reality as a shadow of a higher truth, while the Stoics believed in internal transmutation as a path to enlightenment. But it was in the Hellenistic era where alchemy took on a new dimension, merging with the teachings of Hermetism, a set of doctrines attributed to Hermes Trismegistus, the mythical sage who taught the maxim, "As it is above, it is below; as it is inside, it is outside." During the Middle Ages, alchemy was guarded by the Arabs, who refined it and expanded their knowledge throughout Europe. At this time, alchemy took two paths: the material that sought the transmutation of metals, and the spiritual that focused on the transformation of the soul. It was then that figures such as Paracelsus and the Rosicrucians emerged, who saw in alchemy a tool to achieve the perfection of the human being. Alchemists were not mere experimenters in their laboratories. They were mystics, philosophers, and visionaries who understood that the true great work was not found in the outside world, but within the being itself. In its symbology, we find dragons, purifying fire, mercury, and sulfur. But deep down, each of these elements hides a message about the evolution of the spirit. Throughout the centuries, alchemy has been watched over by mystery and metaphor. But now, it is time to decipher its hidden code and understand how these ancient principles can be applied in our daily life. Spiritual alchemy is the art of internal transformation, the transmutation of our deepest essence into something superior. As the ancient alchemists tried to turn lead into gold, spiritual alchemy invites us to refine our consciousness, raising it from a state of ignorance and limitation to enlightenment and wisdom. But how is this transformation achieved? The ancient sages established that the alchemical process develops in several phases, each representing a state of being that must be transcended to achieve perfection. These phases not only describe the purification of metals, but also reveal a map of personal and spiritual evolution. The first step in spiritual alchemy is the Nigredo, the work in black. It is the moment of decomposition, the symbolic death of the ego, and all the illusions that bind us to a limited existence. It is the initial chaos, the confrontation with our shadow, the confrontation with our fears and weaknesses. This phase can be experienced as a crisis, a dark night of the soul, where everything we thought was safe begins to collapse. But just as the seed needs to be buried in the darkness before sprouting, the spirit must go through this state of decomposition to then be reborn with greater clarity. Once we have crossed the Nigredo, we come to the albedo, the work in white. It is the process of purification, the washing of the spirit of all impurity. Here we are taught to cultivate mental clarity, serenity, and the detachment from negative emotions. This phase is related to introspection and self-knowledge. It is the moment when we begin to see the world with new eyes, without the distortions of the ego. The alchemists represented this stage with the image of the bright moon, reflecting the light of truth. This is where spiritual practices such as meditation, prayer, fasting, and energy work play a key role. They help us purify our thoughts, emotions, and actions to prepare us for the next level of transmutation. In this phase, the golden light of awakening begins to manifest. It is the state where wisdom begins to shine within us. Trinitas is the union of the conscious and the unconscious, of reason and intuition, of spirit and matter. Here we learn that true knowledge is not found in books or external teachings, but in direct experience with the divine. Alchemy tells us that gold is not obtained only with fire, but with patience and understanding of the cycles of nature and the soul. The great spiritual masters have gone through this phase, understanding that enlightenment is not a permanent state, but a constant process of evolution. But the last and highest transformation is still missing. We have traveled the path from the purity of Nigredo, going through the purification of albedo and the enlightenment of Trinitas. Now we come to the final phase of the Great Alchemical Work, Rubedo, the work in red. This is where the true transmutation occurs, the moment when the lead of our lower nature becomes the gold of full consciousness. Rubedo is the culmination of the alchemical process. It is the sacred marriage between the soul and the spirit, between the human and the divine. It represents the total awakening of consciousness, when duality dissolves and we understand that we have always been part of everything. In the esoteric tradition, this state is represented by the image of the phoenix, which resurfaces from its own ashes, symbolizing the immortality of the spirit. It is also the rebirth of the sun, the arrival of pure light after having faced the darkness of ignorance and suffering. Rubedo is the crystallization of our true being. Here we no longer fight against duality, but integrate it. We no longer seek the light outside of us, but understand that we are the light. This state has been achieved by the great spiritual leaders of humanity. Buddha, Jesus, Hermes Trismegisto, Lao Tse, all went through this journey of inner transformation. But alchemy teaches us that enlightenment is not a privilege of a few, but a destiny that we can all achieve if we follow the path with determination and humility. If we observe closely, we realize that alchemy never tried just to turn metals into gold. That was just a metaphor to hide its true purpose, the transformation of the human being into its highest version. Each of us is an alchemist in power, with the ability to change his destiny and raise his vibration. But for this, we must commit to the great work, with the transmutation of the ego into consciousness, of fear into love, of shadow into light. However, knowing this is not enough. Alchemy is an art that must be practiced. Spiritual alchemy is not just a philosophical concept or an abstract idea reserved for mystics. It is a living practice that can transform your life if you apply its principles with discipline and conscience. Let us see how each stage of the great work can be reflected in our daily life and what tools we can use to accelerate our inner evolution. The first phase of the alchemical process invites us to face our own darkness, that which we deny of ourselves. But how can we apply this in our daily life? Practice self-observation. Keep a diary in which you register patterns of thought, recurring emotions, and automatic reactions. What are the limiting beliefs that prevent you from advancing? Work with the shadow. Carl Jung spoke of integrating the repressed aspects of our psyche. Meditation, introspection, and therapy can help you recognize and heal these hidden aspects. Purification rituals. Many spiritual traditions include practices such as fasts, baths with herbs, incense burning, or the writing of negative thoughts on paper to then burn them. These symbolic acts represent the dissolution of the old and create space for transformation. After the symbolic death in the Nigredo, we enter the albedo, where the light begins to infiltrate our consciousness. Here we work on mental and emotional purification to be able to rise to a higher level of perception. Meditation and mindfulness practices. Learn to calm your mind to observe without attachment the thoughts and emotions that arise. Exercises of gratitude and compassion. Cultivate elevated emotions. Dissolve the residues of negativity and open the heart to a higher vibration. Contact with nature. Walking barefoot on the ground, immersing oneself in water, or simply taking a deep breath in the open air helps to clean the energy field. This phase represents the moment in which the light of knowledge illuminates our existence. We have already purified the dense, and now we are ready to integrate higher understanding into our lives. Study of sacred texts and esoteric philosophy. Exploring the wisdom of ancient traditions provides us with tools to understand reality from a higher perspective. Application of knowledge in everyday life. It is not enough to read about spirituality. You have to live it. How can you act with more consciousness in your relationships, in your work, and in your daily choices? Creative visualization and affirmations. Using mental images and positive decrees reprograms our mind to align with our highest version. The last phase of the great work is the crystallization of the whole process. Here, the alchemical person has been reborn with a new vision and a clear purpose: service to others. The true alchemist does not seek transformation only for himself, but to share his light with the world. Helping others is a way to consolidate our spiritual evolution. Conscious creation. Whether in art, writing, work, or relationships, everything we do can become an expression of our new state of consciousness. Integration of the internal balance. Accepting both light and shadow without judgment. Recognizing that everything is part of the same process of evolution. Throughout this journey, we have explored the mysteries of spiritual alchemy, unraveling its symbols and applying them to our internal transformation. From the dissolution of the ego in the Nigredo phase, going through the purification of the albedo, the enlightenment of the citrinitas, to the manifestation of the authentic being in the Rubedo, each stage has revealed to us a deep path of self-knowledge and transcendence. But here lies the great secret. Spiritual alchemy is not a destiny, but a continuous process. It is not about reaching a final state of enlightenment, but about converting each experience, each challenge, and each victory into a step towards a greater expansion of consciousness. Alchemical gold is not a metal, it is your own evolution. The great alchemists of history understood that the true power is not in transforming lead into physical gold, but in converting ignorance into wisdom, fear into love, and separation into unity. Now, the final question is, are you willing to start your great work? If this knowledge has resonated with you, I invite you to reflect on what phase of spiritual alchemy you are in. Apply the shared tools to begin your transformation. Share this message if you think it can inspire others, and keep exploring by subscribing to the channel to discover the mysteries of existence and the evolution of the soul.